A little while back, I made an episode about how to gain back motivation when it's lost. But what do we do in the meantime when we're waiting for that motivation to return? I think the first instinct would be to just stop. That's an option. But sometimes pushing through those dull moments when you've lost that motivation is how you get to the best moments afterwards. This is what I would call resilience. Welcome back to Find Your Power podcast. I am your host, Avery Jane, and today's episode, I want to talk about resilience. I want to touch on the difference between true resilience and kind of this new idea of resilience within the past few years, especially within our generation. And yeah, we're just going to have some fun and chat about it. So I do want to start by kind of talking about the word resilience because, like I just kind of mentioned, I think within the past few years, this word has really gained a bit of a negative connotation, especially in our generation, as it has been used in a lot of ways to promote hustle culture. We see things online, like on TikTok, on Instagram, like, you have to just keep being resilient and that's how you'll be successful. But then it's kind of included with a video of someone doing that never stop kind of wake up at 5 a.m., go, nonstop till 11 p.m., and then crash into bed at night. And that's kind of the whole day, and you just do that on repeat every single day, and you don't stop, you don't get breaks for yourself, you just go, and that's how you be successful, right? Hustle culture. We've talked about this. So I think that this word has been really used in these kind of videos, these kind of ideas, and I think that has kind of led to this word of resilience being a little bit negative, more negative connotation, and that kind of thing. Almost like the word is starting to be kind of ruined. Since it's been tied to this idea of hustle culture, it's started to have more of a definition of pushing through everything no matter what, taking no breaks, having no feelings towards what you're doing, kind of just go. And that's not what this word, in my opinion, should mean. It's honestly a pretty positive word from my outlook on it. It's a pretty positive word, and it can be a pretty positive characteristic that people have, or characteristic that people can build on as well. So I think I've touched a lot on the hustle culture idea in past episodes, and probably most of you guys know what this kind of idea is. But to basically summarize, hustle culture is the idea of having no days off, and this mindset that productivity is your self-worth, basically. It's also most of the time ignoring burnouts and just ignoring your emotions towards things. It's basically just pushing through everything. And I think that this is kind of where the word resilience gets a little blurred, because it can sound like it fits this description in a lot of ways. But I think real resilience, the true meaning of the word, not what our generation has slowly made this word mean. Pushing. Yes, working hard, but taking breaks when they're needed and coming back afterwards. So not pushing past the break, but also not taking a break and never coming back. Somewhere in between that. I'd say taking breaks as they're needed and coming back afterwards. Maybe real resilience is being discouraged sometimes, but finding ways around that discouragement, or still continuing to fight for what you want, fight for your dreams, fight for your ideal self, whatever that may be, even when you feel discouraged. I think real resilience is also finding the ability to adjust when things need to be changed, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to quit. If you're resilient, you may need to adjust. You may need to slow down. You may need to speed up. You may need to take a different perspective on things sometimes, take a different route, but that doesn't mean you're going to quit. If something is very important to you and you know that it's meant for you. So I think the idea is that real resilience is not never falling, never getting pushed down, because I think it's really hard to go about life with never feeling discouraged, never getting pushed down. And that's why the hustle culture idea doesn't really work, because eventually you're going to get burnt out. And we've talked a little bit about burnout as well, but that's a whole nother thing. Since we are talking about real resilience, I do want to actually give you guys the true definition of resilience, because I think I've said a lot of things that could be interpreted from resilience, but the true dictionary definition is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties or toughness. So it is similar to what I've been saying, and there is nowhere in this definition that says that you need to keep going and not stop. I think recovering clearly means that you were pushed down, things did get discouraging or negative or whatever kind of idea you want to take from this, you were set back. And if you are resilient, then you are able to come back from that. And that doesn't mean ignoring your emotions. It doesn't mean not taking breaks. It doesn't mean you have to be on the same path or the same route that you started on. It just means you're able to recover. You're not going to be set back completely if something doesn't work out the way that you want it to. So I think I've touched a little bit already on why burnout has a bad reputation, but to kind of add to what I've said, resilience recently has been associated with burnout and toxic productivity, and the kind of advice where we just keep pushing through it. If something's tough, you got this, just keep going, that kind of thing. And sometimes that is not bad advice. And I don't think we mean to say it to people also in a negative way. I think it is supposed to be good advice. But by saying, just keep going, you're fine, you got this, just keep pushing through it, that sometimes can imply that there's no room for slowdown or a break or a reroute or a pivot, whatever you may call it. And sometimes that's what's needed. Our idea of how something is going to work out in the beginning, in a lot of times, it may change. And that's okay. It's good to kind of take a step back, take a break. Don't let yourself overwork yourself, because then you're going to be pushed back a lot further than if you were to just take a step back on your own and take a break when you need it. We have seen what happens when people take it too far, or people don't give themselves that time that they need to kind of relax or take breaks. And since we've seen that, I think that's another reason why the word gets such a bad rep and has a bad connotation around it, because we see this person was so resilient and now they are burned out and they couldn't complete what they wanted to. But the truth is that that's different from true resilience. So how do we actually be resilient in like a positive way, in the true resilience kind of meaning? So this comes with a lot of consistency and a lot of discipline. And sometimes these aren't very fun things, they get hard. And that's because sometimes motivation is not so reliable. We have motivation in the beginning of things a lot of times, like the beginning of the year, the beginning of the month, sometimes the beginning of the week. the beginning of the day even. The beginnings are usually where our motivation is peak. And then it kind of just goes downhill. I would say it's really unlikely for someone to just have peak motivation all day long, all week long, all month long. Maybe it's possible. I haven't seen it. But since motivation is so unreliable and it's bound to go downhill eventually, that's where this consistency plays a big role. And that's why everyone always says, consistency is key. And I think that's honestly very true, because motivation is not always going to be there to help you. And consistency might mean showing up when you really don't feel like it. Or even it could mean just doing small things, building habits from small things. You do, maybe it's daily, maybe it's weekly, building those small things that you do. And once it becomes a habit, even when that motivation is gone, you're still going to do it, because at that point, it's part of your routine. It's part of your habits. But I do want to point out that every time you show up when things are hard, you prove to yourself that you can. And making promises or deals with yourself and following through with those is one of the best ways to build self-esteem and confidence. So I do want to share a few personal examples on resilience and consistency, because I think especially at our age, if you are in college like me or wherever you are in life, I think a lot of times we think that consistency and being resilient has to be something specific. It has to be, that means climbing the ladder in your corporate job. That's what being resilient is. But there are so many other ways that you can be resilient and stay consistent in so many different aspects of your life. And it doesn't have to be anything big either. It can be really small things. An example I think of a lot is way back when I was in middle school, actually, because it's something that I didn't realize at the time I was being resilient or staying consistent. I didn't even really acknowledge the capacity to which I was able to kind of get back up when I was pushed down. I just knew it was something that I wanted to do. There was something that I wanted to do, and I got pushed down, and I really just got back up 10 times harder. And it's something little. And like I said, it doesn't have to be anything big. Just finding these little times in your life when you were able to do that, it can show you that even if it was something small, if you were able to do that when you got pushed down and you got back up 10 times harder, 10 times stronger, it shows you that you can. And it shows you that whether it's a big or a little moment, you can do it. If you've done it before, you can do it again. And even if you haven't done it before, you can always start now. But the example that I think of is when I was in 7th grade, I was playing softball. I had started playing softball when I was a kid, like really young. I'd say 8 years old. I was in 7th grade and I tried out for the softball team for my school. I was a pitcher at the time, or I've always been a pitcher, and I didn't make the team. And instead of being like, oh, I guess softball really isn't for me, I actually joined the club team. I joined the off-season kind of teams through the city instead of through the school. And I also started pitching lessons. And basically, I came back in 8th grade trying out for the team, and people were shocked I didn't even make it the year before. But the truth is, I had a very different skill level for only 1 year. And it was because of the work that I had put into it. So I ended up being the starting pitcher for 8th grade when I hadn't even made the team in 7th grade. But it's little things like that at the time I thought, oh, it's just something that I enjoy. So I didn't make the team. Maybe I can make it next year. Honestly, thinking back, I think that kids tend to be very resilient. And this this doesn't just have to do with like kids being resilient in things like this, like sports or activities, academic or not. Kids are also very resilient in their health. Kids' minds are very resilient. Kids are just resilient in general, I think, with their health and everything. But even if you can think of a time like mine, an example like mine, where I was, maybe 12 years old, but it was something that is really big. And things like that, little examples like that in your past, in your life, even if you were a child, it proves to you that you're able to do it. If you were able to do it as a child, why can't you do it as an adult? I think that we might see, kids are more resilient than adults, but you don't have to fit that stereotype if you don't want to. You can say that you're just as resilient now as an adult as you were as a kid. To you. That's your decision to make. And if you are in college, like me, another way that you can think of resilience is in school. This doesn't just mean keep pushing, always getting good grades. This can actually mean that maybe you didn't do well on your first or second exam. Maybe you actually did terrible. Maybe you got an F. Maybe you failed your first exam in one of your classes. Being resilient in this situation would look like finding new ways to study or finding new things to add to your schedule to study for this class to be better next time. It doesn't mean beating yourself up. I think that's a really big thing that we tend to do. Don't beat yourself up if you did poorly on something, especially if it was your first time trying it. We're not always going to be perfect our first time, and I think that's why a lot of times in the classes, our first exam score is the worst, and that's fine. As long as you find your weak points and you can kind of turn those around and you can find the ways that help you study best, that's what resilience is. It doesn't mean being perfect the first time. That's it. Honestly, while I'm talking about my personal experiences, I do kind of want to mention what inspired this episode. And it is a little hard to admit, but it honestly was my consistency with this podcast in general, because I have been doing this podcast for about 5 months now. I think I started it back in November, and maybe that doesn't seem like too long, but an episode a week, it's starting to add up. And although, yes, I love doing this podcast and I don't want to stop, it is kind of hard sometimes to stay consistent with it. Because, like I said, that motivation's not always going to be there. In the beginning, of course, it was so strong. I was recording way ahead of schedule because I had so many ideas. My motivation was peak. But, now it's 5 months down the line and the motivation is maybe going a little downhill. That doesn't mean it won't come back. It probably will. This is just a wave. Motivation comes in waves. But, here I am. And I thought, the best way I think to use downtime is to your advantage. Taking breaks, of course, is okay. I did take a good time off. I didn't record on my normal day this time. So yes, I did take a bit of a break. Just a few days, but I am recording a bit later than I usually do. And that's okay. It's okay to take breaks. I think it's good to use your lack of motivation sometimes to your advantage. So that's what I'm doing here, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm using this as a episode topic. Being consistent is key. But anyways, other examples of being consistent and being resilient can be maybe if you are feeling uncertain about your career path, like I was only a year ago or less, and honestly still sometimes I am. I think it's hard to be a college student and be 100% sure about what you want to do for your future career. And you guys know that's why I have this podcast. But being uncertain and unsure about your future career, you can turn this into resilience as well by, sticking it out, finding ways to branch out, finding new things that can give you more of a learning curve towards different aspects, different careers. Maybe this is shadowing, maybe this is getting a part-time job, maybe this is just doing research. Honestly, anything that you can do to just work towards that step of figuring it out. And sometimes it can be uncomfy, but honestly, getting out of your comfort zone is really the only way to grow a lot of times. So that would be what I would consider consistency and resilience as well. So, of course, there were times I felt like quitting as well. Many times, and I'm sure there are times that you've felt like quitting, but the key is to just keep showing up, even if that's in small ways, and take breaks as you need it. But if you do feel like quitting, sometimes that is okay. Sometimes that is the answer. But if it feels like something's meant for you, by showing up and in small ways still, and this isn't in a run yourself to the ground kind of way, but more in a I'm not going to give up on myself kind of way. That's what resilience looks like. So maybe that's taking a break and coming back. Maybe it's failing an exam and studying differently, like the example I said before, or feeling lost but still exploring other options. But it can also just be outgrowing something and starting over. That's totally resilience. If something doesn't feel aligned with you anymore, you don't have to keep pushing through it. You don't have to keep doing it just because, quitting is bad and consistency is key. If something doesn't feel aligned with you, don't keep doing it anymore. Don't keep pushing through it. Just start over. That just means that you outgrew something, and that's okay. Acknowledging that outgrowth and starting over, that's true resilience right there. I do want to stress that resilience doesn't have to be impressive either. It honestly isn't always impressive. It's mostly quiet and unnoticed, but it's very powerful to yourself. And this comes along with integrity as well, because it's the way that you perceive yourself at the end of the day that is the most valuable thing. And by being resilient, you are proving to yourself that you can do these things. And like I said, that's the best way to build self-confidence. So wrapping up the episode, I do want to just stress that success isn't about who works the hardest nonstop. It's about who keeps going the longest without getting burnt out. And this means listening to your body and to your mind when it needs a break. It also means managing your time in a way that leaves gaps in your schedule for you and yourself. And while I'm saying this, the time management and building your schedule is actually something I talk about a few episodes back on the episode titled "We Need to Slow Down, Busy Isn't Productive." So if you do want to listen to that one after this, if you haven't already, that will definitely connect these two episodes together. And that will help you get started on getting your ideal schedule for yourself. But if you do take anything from this episode, I do want you to know that you do not need to be perfect or constantly motivated, because that is completely unrealistic. You just need to keep coming back even when that motivation is lost. It's important to also rest as you need to and reset whenever you need to as well. If you have felt that you outgrew something, that's okay to quote unquote quit that thing. I would say that if you outgrew it and it doesn't align with you, I wouldn't even call that quitting. I would just say that that's outgrowth, and starting something new or starting over on something is completely okay. And don't be too hard on yourself if you do have to do that. Don't give up on yourself, and as long as you do that, then you have true resilience in a positive way. Well, that does conclude today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening today. Tune in every Thursday to listen or watch on YouTube or Spotify, or for audio only, I am on Audible, Apple Podcast, Amazon Podcast. Make sure to check out the Instagram or the TikTok at findyourpower_podcast. Appreciate you all for being so supportive of the podcast. I read all of the comments, so if you guys want to leave any comments anywhere on Apple, on Spotify, on YouTube, wherever, I will read them. I do appreciate them. I do respond as well. And if you do enjoy the podcast, if you are a loyal listener, please rate it. It really helps the podcast grow. If you have a family member or a friend that you think could benefit from this episode or the podcast in general, please send it to them. We do not gatekeep here, and they really may thank you later for it. And lastly, if you'd like to be featured for an interview on the podcast, please send me an email in the email linked in the podcast description section, and we will chat there. Or you can also shoot me a DM on the Instagram. I will see that as well. I will talk to you guys again next Thursday, because I will be consistent and I will keep coming even if my motivation is not quite there, because consistency is key, and I'm not giving up on myself, just like you shouldn't either. I believe in you guys. You got this. If you're feeling down, just know you can come back to this episode whenever you want to. I will talk to you guys again next Thursday. I will see you there. And don't forget, we will find your power.